right, it is 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, so then that moves us into awards and recognition. Elaine.
Right, so I would like to start off by reading a resolution that we have for our School Board Recognition Day. Whereas a system of quality public education is essential to the future of our state and nation, and whereas the people of Missouri have a long tradition of support for public education in their local school district, whereas local school boards are the ultimate expression of the unique American institution of representative governance of public school district, whereas local school boards, acting on behalf of and in close concert with the people of their communities, chart the direction of education in their communities, and whereas local school boards serve as the key community advocate for children, youth, and the public schools, now therefore let it be known that March 15th, 2022 is School Board Recognition Day in the Brentwood School District. We urge all community members to recognize the members of the Brentwood School District Board of Education for their commitment to providing our students with the finest possible education. And I would like to point out, before you leave tonight, all of our schools did a variety of things. We got lots of nice cards and posters from the kids, very sweet. They put a lot of work into those. And now we got a couple of videos to show you as well for appreciation. First off, we have from the Early Childhood Center.
It's the white and blue one.
Okay. This is from Brentwood Middle School. I didn't prepare anything formal, but the board is very much appreciated by us as administration and the community, and then I think it's good for the community to understand the level of commitment that comes with this position. You know, if, you know, what is outward facing is, you know, 1 or 2 meetings a month for a few hours, and the reality of the position when done right, as all of our board members do, is that we're typically looking at, in many cases, I can tell you this time of year as we're doing negotiations with our teachers and having some other meetings, and as we work through COVID, that many times board members were in 2 to 4 meetings a week. So that commitment is sizable and very much needed and appreciated. So thank you, board.
Thank you.
And that was it for recognitions tonight.
Great, thank you. That moves us into communications. Did we get anything?
No.
No? Okay, great. We have no citizens here tonight. So we'll move into a roll call vote, please.
Jamie Allen.
Here.
Melissa Dare. Here. Chris Perkins.
Here.
Keith Ravenberg.
Here.
Keith Slusser.
Here.
Lindsey Spencer.
Here.
Carrie Trostle.
Here. If I could get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as outlined. Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved, and that moves us into the superintendent's report.
Yes, I'd like to start off, I'm looking for board approval that we would continue with our current code mitigation practices in the district. They, as you know, since March 7th, we have went to a mask optional approach. It has been very successful and well received. We obviously have some students and staff that are rightfully electing to continue to wear masks, and that's been respected by all. And but we do have a lot of students and staff that have enjoyed not wearing masks at this point. And I can also share with you that in the past over 2.5 weeks, we have not had a single positive COVID case. So it is, knock on wood, good news. Everything's looking great. So we're really opening up in terms of our mitigation plans, and we'll continue to share these, but we're at this point, unless something, as always, we'll continue to track the data and best practices, but at this point we are fully moving forward with being able to fully have graduation as normal, to have field days, to have 8th grade graduation, 6th grade graduation, kickball, all of those fun things that we've enjoyed in the past, and we'll be able to have parents at those as well. So more details to come, but things are looking really great.
I move that we approve continue with the mitigation plan as outlined by Dr. Lane. Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved.
Yes, next up, we just wanted to issue 2 new purchasing cards, or P cards as we call them. You'll see on there, one is for Matt Norrid, our CFO, and previously that large amount was under our bookkeeper, Heather Cade. And so anytime we had major purchases from any of the buildings that needed to be on the P card, it would go through Heather. While we have someone new in that position, we thought it made sense that it would be Matt on that card with the $95,000 limit, but then I also am able to see all charges on that, so we have the check and balance in place on that as well. And then we're frequently, Kate is having to go to Matt and use his card for various office and needs around here, so we wanted to issue one to Kate Hastings for $1,000 as well.
I move that we approve the issuances of the P cards as outlined.
Second.
Discussion?
In the process for credit cards, is someone reviewing it? So at the end of the month, all the charges, all the receipts get put together. Who's reviewing
final one? Has it been math historically, or?
It is a combination. It is, we got kind of a multi-tiered. It is first, in this position, it would be Felicia Hill now, who was in Heather's old position. And then Matt would look at them as well. But considering that now Matt has this limit on it, I will be checking on those as well as a final.
I'd say as an auditor, I would recommend you throwing your initials or something on, like, to show that you reviewed the P cards, because it gives him kind of unfettered access without, not that he would, not that I believe Matt would ever do anything, but it's more about checks and balances, and if he can purchase stuff and he's reconciling the account, then ultimately you kind of have a lack of control. So I would say, at least throw an initial by his charges to say that, you know, he looked it over.
I got a note of that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved.
All right, and then last month, Alex, you and Dr. Triphammer presented with the team with the library curriculum and math curriculum. So at this point, he's here to answer any further questions on either of those and ultimately seeking approval of those curriculum.
Sure y'all memorized all the courses and standards.
I guess the only question
Yeah.
Can you just try your mic?
The only question I have, I guess, is on the math. So we're doing a little different thing with the scheduling. Are we changing, like, are we going away from block scheduling, or?
Well, no, I mean, we're still having block scheduling. Are you talking about the high school? The difference is that they're not freshmen won't have math every day.
Right.
That's the primary difference on the scope and sequence. That for a lot of the kids, the scope and sequence will remain the same unless they start in Algebra 1 in 9th grade. Then we want to give them geometry that sophomore year in case they were to take the ACT.
And this is like a 5-year plan, the math, or, I guess my question is, like, we rewrite curriculum and we do different things every
5 years.
5 years. If for some reason we see a change in our math scores, or we just look at things and they're not what we think, we can change things within that 5-year plan, right?
Well, yes. I mean, normally we would wait 5 years to look at a change in scope and sequence, much like we did with social studies 5 years ago when the standards changed. We kind of flipped a lot of the standards around and changed some of the coursework at the elementary side. But that's not to say we couldn't make changes before the curriculum cycle. I think the 5 years is kind of a nice time to see, is this working or not? I mean, it's going to take us probably a couple years just to get some baseline data to determine whether or not we're moving the needle or not. But yeah, you know, it's always at the board's discretion if there's a desire to want to look at the scope and sequence.
Yeah, if scores fell off considerably, then yeah, we're not tied to 5 years. There's nothing magical about that. It's just a good set time to take a look at.
And not that I'm against, I just was asking, you know, as you change things and kind of, you know, do different things, just wanted to know if that was an option.
What about so just the high school, I know I've been involved, members of the community, just around some of the challenges with the higher achieving students, and so we've had the whole ABBC calc discussion, we've had the tracking that we've talked through. You know, as I look at this, and I've not been involved in all of those conversations, I mean, how have we responded, and how do we feel comfortable that we are going to address the higher achievers with this?
So with this adoption, pending your approval, we are offering both calculus A, B, and BC. And like many courses in the high school, it's dependent on student enrollment. So, you know, the unfortunate case is sometimes only, you know, 2 or 3 kids might sign up for a course. In that case, you know, in years past, we didn't have a lot of options. With launch being kind of in our back pocket, we have opportunities to make sure if kids want to take higher level classes, they can. Next, in the fall, we'll have a partnership with St. Louis Community College where kids can actually dual enroll, meaning they come to Brentwood, but they can also enroll at the community college and take, I mean, they've got, gosh, calculus 3 up, you know, and beyond at that level. So we have some tools in our toolbox to support kids if we can't do it physically on site.
Is there a limit, do we have any limits on or caps on the number of kids that can go take the through St. Louis Community College? I mean, I'm not expecting.
It would be really self-restricted. I mean, they'll take whoever we send them, but I mean, I think, talking to Dr. O'Brien, the counselor at the high school, it would be, you know, these are gonna be pretty isolated cases.
The thought process is it would be for classes that we can't offer.
So as an example though, like, and I don't know what it typically takes to make a class, but if we had one of those options where we did not make one of those classes, we would turn around, you all would make sure that that was available then through.
Whether launch or
Whatever that is.
or the St. Louis Community College, either one. So it's nice because we do have a couple of things that we didn't have 4 or 5 years ago
Right.
that are possibilities. But I think overall this plan is really great for enrichment because, you know, not only do you have the 8th grade algebra for credit, which we didn't have before, then it also responds at those junior or senior level courses, which we haven't ever went up to, for instance, a calculus B.C.
Correct.
Do we, and I know we've had some growing pains transitioning over to this over the last few years, but like this curriculum now is such, I mean, kind of to Carrie's point, I mean, obviously we need to be flexible, but we feel like some of these growing pains with transitioning into algebra at 8th grade that we're
I think we needed to sand these rough edges. To be
Okay.
honest, the current structure was not, admittedly so, wasn't the best structure for kids to pack in that freshman year of Algebra 2 and Geometry all in 1 year. I think what we found is we needed to make some adjustments to that scope and sequence.
Yeah, it was just, you know, I think it was just the fact that, and we did the right thing, and I believe inherently 8th grade students should have the ability and have the ability to take Algebra 1, many of them for credit. Then, of course, it just had corresponding, you know, dominoes then at the high school level to figure out because the system wasn't previously set up for kids to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So once you started doing that, then yeah, it took us a little time to say, okay, how can this best be achieved? And ultimately, the only realistic way to achieve it was to really kind of redo the model.
Yeah, I was struck recently, I mean, going back to the old days when I was in high school, we didn't have calculus, but I took it in college, and as soon as we had a high school, and it was manually operated.
sorry.
But I was struck the other day, one of my MSB duties was looking at the scholarship application stuff in Belgium. And all these kids all had taken AP calculus, BC, you know, but they were from these big, well, not all, but they're from schools with 400 kids in the class. And I guess what struck me is that it's important that those 1 or 2 kids in our school have the opportunity to do the same stuff that those kids do. It sounds like you provide for that.
It's very similar to what you hear in rural schools, where like if there's only 50 kids in a cohort, how do you accommodate them? The advent of virtual education has been a nice little benefit, but I think even more tapping into St. Louis Community College where they can actually receive in-person instruction at those higher levels. I think if kids want to take advantage of that, it's a huge benefit.
That's important.
I will confess that this question is derived a little bit from the fact that I'm a 5th grader, so I see kind of, now that we have the new math positions at the elementary school, which I think have been awesome, I know that at least at Mark Twain, that Mary's been doing a lot of enrichment with some of the kids who were a little ready for that, and I was wondering if we had given thought to how that will transition for the middle school.
That's a good thought. I mean, and that's good, something we actually were talking about this morning. You know, I think, you know, as a natural transition, you know, we kind of start to offer differentiated coursework at 6th grade where they can take challenge. And so a lot of, you know, my suspicion is a lot of those kids that are receiving the enrichment with Mary would be the candidates for the challenge coursework, but you might be actually speaking more specific. How do we continue those interventions or supports for higher
And I'm just
achieving kids?
thinking, I'm thinking really kind of across the board, but if we have this, I hope that, and I'm sure that there is, but I'm just throwing it out there, that there's thought going into, there's a lot of kids on both ends of the spectrum who are getting a lot of extra support now as they're moving through elementary school, and that thought is being given to what that transition to middle school, where if the math teachers are like collaborating on, hey, you're gonna get a bunch of kids next year who actually are gonna already know a bunch of these sixth grade standards because I taught it to them last year. Or we have some kids who have historically been on the lower end, but they've actually had a ton of support in third, fourth, and fifth grade, and so they're coming in actually with a lot more, also with a lot more skills than they might have had previously. Just
That's a
thinking
great
about
point.
How that's gonna look.
I would say,
Transition, yeah.
through it, that out of all this, the transitions are the biggest, because I mean, the math curriculum now, you can get as much as you want. That fifth grade to sixth grade, even into seventh, is really an area that, I mean, it's hard to put a curriculum around it, but it is something I think we really need to, if we're a district that sees each kid for whom they are, both all across those, that is an area where, personally going through it, we need to do better. Because it is, that enrichment was there, and then once you hit middle school, it's hard to get.
Yeah, and I think that fifth through ninth range is really the one that's seen the most transition. Like, on like a institutional level, right? Like, the kids have been through a lot, right, because of COVID and everything else, but we've made the most, like, institutional changes kind of in that fifth through ninth grade with changing with the algebra, and then switching the ninth grade thing, and then the fifth grade support, and transitioning to middle school. And so just throwing it out there that I'm interested, I'll be here or have a parent at that age, but I think that is a spot where we could have some room for growth.
I apologize, I was not at the last meeting where the curriculum went through, but, so Hannah, Natalie, and Jerry, all of them were actively involved in spearheading this and putting these together for the respective schools.
Yeah, Hannah worked, she's the elementary coordinator.
Yep.
Natalie has, she's our new seventh grade teacher, but really dove into Desmos.
Okay.
And then Jerry's the high school coordinator. So, yeah, they, between the four of us, we vetted various programs and test drove all kinds of different products. And ultimately, the teachers vote on the math and focus at the elementary level, and Desmos at the middle school level was unanimous by those teachers. High school really didn't make any wholesale changes to their text or their materials.
And just process-wise, sorry if you guys went through this, at the high school level, it's really a function of Jerry coordinating across the individual teachers in terms of textbooks that are used, et cetera?
That's more or less, it's a curriculum review because the standards hadn't changed, so it's a materials review. So he had, I take it back, I think he recommended one statistics book, but other than that, yeah, they reviewed a variety of textbooks and actually looked at newer editions from current texts that they're using and realized there's no need to pay a whole bunch of extra money for a newer edition when the current one works just fine and it's still in print.
And that was specifically where I'm going is, hey, I don't know, but I see part of this curriculum is these texts. I'm assuming people that are a lot smarter than me about this stuff have said, this is the best material that's out there for us.
And that's back to the 5-year that they do.
Yeah,
that
they have the option as a department, and Alex brings in tons of different companies and lets them actually field test it in different classrooms, so.
Any more questions for Alex?
I move that we approve the library and math curriculums as discussed. Yeah.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think those are both approved. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Alex.
Thank you.
That's it for my items.
Okay, that moves us into our Board of Education. The first thing is an MSBA Delegate Report, so I'll let Keith take that.
Well, went to the legislative forum last weekend, went to the tuition, behaved for the most part. The other thing, I don't know if I mentioned this before, there was a big hubbub last fall when MSB dropped with NSBA. And so MSBA and counterparts in other states that are in the process of setting up this alternative thing that's called consortium or something. And I think Melissa Graham is kind of in the middle of that. The So there's some things that they're doing. One is they're gonna try to accommodate more rural school districts, their interest in MSB was a little bit too early in the center. They became very, very political, and that's what was the problem. So anyways, that's moving along. And then I read today that our Attorney General sued the MSBA for claiming violation of the Sunshine Act. It's not clear whether MSBA is governed by the Sunshine Act. Because I actually asked Susan Goldam for that once, and she said, well, we don't think we are, but we tend to, they comply with open meeting notices and stuff like that. And I think it was about, he's claiming that the MSBA didn't provide documents relating to that NSBA gas, and accusing MSB of having participated with MSBA, which I don't think is true. So there's suspicions going each direction. Anyway, so that's it. And it was a good legislative form. I shook the governor's hand. They had this thing set up over the Capitol where the governor talked, and that was nice. And then they had these kids. We were invited to send a group of kids to show off something. So we should take them up on that sometime. But I walked around there a little bit, and the governor spent the whole, a whole bunch of time going from booth to booth talking to them. I was standing there talking to somebody else, and there was standing next to me.
Did you go to the mansion for a cocktail?
No.
It's just right on the street.
But the MSBA Board of Directors meeting in late April in Jeff City, I had dinner.
All right, the governor's mansion.
So did kids have booths there, or schools have booths there, and the kids?
Yeah, I talked to a couple, and it's just different things that they were doing. They said,
That would be neat.
it was kind of neat. They got to do this in the Capitol.
Cool.
Sure that your children.
We can maybe look at that for the grade that missed the Jeff City trip because of COVID, and see if they want, I don't know what year they are now.
They are fourth graders right now.
Yeah, that might be something maybe next year that they'd at least get to take that trip there.
I think there
It's
was
usually like a small group that you'd send, like, the robotics team or the.
It's like club-based more,
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, I think there would be an invitation to do something like that at the MSB conference in October. But then anyway, it'll come up again. So I encourage everybody to think about it. I know it's some extra stuff.
That same day, I was going to add, there are 11 female senators right now in Jeff City, and they've gotten together and written a book called You Can Too, about the 36 female senators in Missouri's history. Been 1,118 males and 36 females, but they wrote a book, and they published enough so that every fourth grade class in the state and every library, school library, can get a copy of the book. So we just have to reach out to our senator and we can get copies. So I have one copy. I forgot to bring it tonight, but we can get them for all of our schools, and it was really lovely. So they've all come together and they're passing some legislation that MSBA is supporting, and it was very encouraging to hear them speak. So Jill Shoup was one of them, and O'Loughlin, I can't remember all the
Yeah,
total.
that was a great presentation because, there were women with very different political points. Get along.
Great.
Getting things done.
Maybe they can model behavior.
Teach some other people stuff about that.
Probably not. You have to give credit to O'Loughlin because she's kind of, I really think she's the devil. But in those situations, that she showed up.
Yeah, and they gave us updates on what's happening in the legislature. So Fridays, you get the emails from the MSBA, so I would follow that. Is there an SSD
out to Alex about this. They have a parent advisory council, and then each building is each district they encourage to have their own parent advisory councils, and then they said that they encourage districts to have a representative from the PAC come and speak on some frequency for the school board. But I was talking to Alex, and it seems like the person from Brentwood who's on the PAC doesn't seem to be super active anymore. So that may be something to look out for in the future, see if we can recruit somebody new to step into that role, and maybe then once there is somebody a little more active to come and speak to all of you.
Right, and then board committee updates, finance and facility, we've been meeting regularly throughout the past couple months, during TV.
I think we'll probably try to pull a communications meeting together before Aunt leaves us. But no, we'll want to kind of talk about that and continue how to continue the work of that group. So we'll pull that together before. Actually, we'll have to pull it together here pretty soon. We'll try to pull something together in the next couple few weeks. Yeah, Sean was just asking about that today. So
Curriculum committee, since we talked about the math stuff.
Okay, that just leads us into upcoming events. Maybe from us, Kate.
Hey, if anybody, Keith is going to the Region 7 meeting, if anybody else would like to attend, let me know. And,
Is anybody else going to that?
I might.
I can't.
I told Kate before the meeting, and I mean, none of the stuff I've seen on that is what Bill needs, so. She's gonna promise, she promised to find out for us so that we're not driving around with her.
It's just the evening, is that correct? What? It's just the evening of the 28th?
yeah.
Yeah.
Kate, I'll go to that.
Yeah, I cannot. Thanks. All right, and then we have, our policy meeting is on April 5th, also election day, and then we'll have our business meeting and reorganization on April 19th for a new board member. Right, anything else to add?
Nope. I move that we adjourn and move into closed session for reasons stated in the agenda.
Okay, we can have a roll call, please.
Julie Allen?
Yes.
Melissa Mayer?
Yes.
Chris Perkins?
Yes.
Keith Ravenberg?
Yes.
Keith Sluther?
Yes.
Lindsey Spencer?
Yes.
Gary Trust?